So I'm going to preface everything I say in this episode with this big warning label. I am not a doctor, and what I am offering
I am a doctor, but not that kind of doctor.
Yes, Travis is not a real doctor. No, I had to review. We're not medically trained.
Right.
So I am offering my experience, which is descriptive, not prescriptive. Okay.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Called2B Podcast, where we seek to empower everyday believers to discover and live out their authentic calling in Christ. I'm Reverend Dr. Travis Guzzi. I'm a pastor, as well as an ICF-certified life and executive coach and a Gallup Strengths coach. And it is great having all of you with us once again, our viewing and listening audience, for yet another episode of the Called2B Podcast. And in studio, we have Trish Freshwater and Pastor Kevin Scott, who are joining us today. And it's great having you back in the studio.
Wonderful to be back. I'm glad that I made it back in one piece from the Best Practices Conference that we presented at. Hello to any of you who saw us there and came and hung out with us. Hi. But I didn't think I was going to make it back.
Yeah, well, you had a pretty harrowing flight, right?
It was bad. It was I felt like Jonah on the ship when they threw him overboard. I thought the pilot needed to throw me overboard. I was 30 minutes after takeoff, a 200 mile an hour jet stream caught the back of the plane and literally pushed it all the way back to Richmond from Phoenix.
Well, you got back in time, though.
Yeah,
I was going to say, get time
45
warp.
minutes early, and I was sitting, get this, you can't make this up. I was sitting in a tail seat. I was in the very last row, and I've never
Hey, that's where all the good action is.
White knuckling it the whole way. It was terrifying. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I understand you use those little bags a few times too,
did,
right?
Yeah, very air sick. I've been car sick, I've been seasick, and now I've been air sick. So I can add that onto the wonderful list of sicknesses, which is a wonderful segue into today's podcast, which is about not getting sick and taking care of yourself.
That's right. Well, especially
Trish, how are you?
You know,
Well.
by the way, that only happened to me one time. It was flying out of Salt Lake City. I thought I was going to meet Jesus.
Yes.
I mean, it was that bad. And they closed the
Yeah.
airport right after our flight left. So
Yeah.
we were the last one out. The winds were that bad. So I understand that.
Oh yeah,
It's terrifying.
I was doing the Apostles' Creed and the Lord's Prayer in my head like 2.5 hours the whole way back. I thought I was going to die.
Well, see, the secret, though, is we saw him on the way out, and we were on the same flight going there. And in the airport, he's telling us, no, I hate to fly. I hate to fly. I don't want to get on this plane.
Yep.
Next time I'm driving, so I think it's sealed. I'll never fly again.
Next time I'm either driving or I'm going to get a tranquilizer that will render me unconscious for the entirety of the flight.
Well, you know, we could get like the Called2B RV and like do a cross-country trip, make some
Travis,
stops.
why don't you just punch me really hard before I go on the plane, and then I will be rendered unconscious?
Well, you know, they have drugs for that.
Yes, that would be preferable, because again, that's how you take care of your body, with drugs. Nobody go out there and say that the Called2B podcast is advocating drug use. We do not.
Right.
We do not. Trish, how are you?
I'm doing well, although I did take the red eye back. I don't think I'll be doing that again.
Oh, I don't like red eyes either. But.
No, it's only the second time, and I thought it would be fine. I mean, from a time-saving perspective, it did help us, but I don't care to do that again.
Right.
No.
Well, very good. Well, hey, great having you back. It was a great conference. Wonderful having all those who were able to join us at our presentation on Do You Want to Start a Podcast, and just some nuts and bolts of how we put this together and how it operates. So it was to be able to hopefully share that vision, and some others catch the podcast bug the way we have. So we are we have started a new series that we're doing called Empowered for Life. And Trish, why don't you set us up on what we're going to be reviewing in this podcast episode?
So in this episode, we are going to talk more about how to take care of yourself physically so that you are ready and able and capable of living out your calling.
Yeah. And we, in our last podcast, we looked at empowering our soul. We're looking today at empowering our body. And so let's just do maybe a check-in. If we had a little scale of 1 to 10, just how are you doing in your physical conditioning in life right now?
Yeah.
So is this about effort or actual condition?
Let's say condition.
I feel okay. I mean, I feel like when it comes to eating, I actually do really well, because I prefer to eat a very clean diet. I just feel better when I eat that way, and there's an immediate benefit for me. So like I sort of divvy it out into food the food and not food. So food is when you do your circle at the grocery store, everything on like the outer perimeter, that's all real food. And then the stuff on the center aisle, no, that's not real food. So I don't eat that. And as long as I do that, I feel pretty good. But exercise, even though I know it's good for me and I feel good when I do it, just carving out the time and getting the motivation to actually get up and do it is very difficult. So I guess a 6.5 maybe on a good day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you, Trish?
I'll be in that same range.
Okay.
Working on the diet, been working with a dear friend on nutrition, and women of a certain age have different needs.
Yes, as well as men of a certain age.
Is that dear friend Lois Huey, by the way?
It sure is.
Okay, Lois
Huge
Huey.
shout out to
everybody
Lois.
seek out Lois Huey. She's great. She's great.
She's teaching us a lot about the importance of protein and making sure that we're getting the right balance. It's not about carving things out of your diet, but necessarily having that correct balance. And so working on all of that, but I think my biggest downfall is I've been a sloth. And I've used the winter as my excuse, and that excuse is gone. So now that we have nice weather, it's time to walk the dogs, which will make the dogs happy. It will make the body happy, and it will actually bring all of this work together to have some maybe success versus continuing to sit on the couch.
Yeah. If you were to put a number to it to quantify,
I'm going to stick with Kevin's 6.
Six.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
6.5 on a good day.
Yeah, we're doing really well with the eating,
6.5.
but got to get up and outside and moving and get active. And of course, my teenagers are in sports mode, so they've both asked for memberships to the gym. And so perhaps we will all get a little motivation going in the house. So, if one kid wants to go, we all go instead of having to go at it alone.
Yeah. Well, if you would have asked me that question back in December, I probably would have given you a 5. I was not
5?
I was not really feeling good about my health, but I have been working out like a crazy man. I have changed my diet. I've cut out alcohol since the new year. I just actually went in for my physical today, and other than a little high blood pressure, they're giving me some medication for it. They gave me an A+ on my physical. I've lost 20 pounds since the new year. So
congratulations. Well, I heard you've been doing a bit of running too.
About 5 miles a day. I've been hammering it. I'm lifting. I'm eating right. It's really good. So now that my AFib is dealt with, I was actually doing pretty good till AFib happened, and then I just had to kind of stop everything because when your heart's not working with you, you can't really strain too much. But now that's resolved, and my knees seem to be working. I'm pretty happy with that. So
congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. It's praise God for that. I'm really happy.
Amen.
Well, let's start the topic of how do we care for ourselves, and how can we maybe start moving that needle. And again, we're not looking for somebody going from a 5 to a 10 or a 6 to a 10 overnight. But how do you move the needle? Maybe just a degree or two, a point or two in your life.
Yeah. So I'm going to preface everything I say in this episode with this big warning label. I am not a doctor, and what I am offering
I am a doctor, but not that kind of doctor.
Yes, Travis is not a real doctor. No, I had to review. We're not medically trained.
Right.
So I am offering my experience, which is descriptive, not prescriptive. Okay. Now, that having been said, I am a proponent of fasting. I think it's good for you. I think that it's actually, there's a pretty solid biblical foundation for it.
Okay.
And it's not actually that hard to do. So in my life, I've incorporated a type of fasting called intermittent fasting.
Yeah, and we're actually,
it's quite popular these days. And essentially what you do is you try to fast for about 18 hours. That's where I'm at. And that equates to not eating breakfast. So, I mean, how do you get around that? Well, when you drink your cup of coffee, you put a little butter in there, and that holds you over until
that's Pastor Kevin's tip for the day: a little butter in your coffee.
It's called bulletproof coffee. It's real. It's I do a keto diet. That's what I feel my best at. Not saying that you would feel your best at it, but I feel my best there. But the intermittent fasting I actually think is good because it teaches you discipline. It's easy to do if you can get past. Like right now, I have not eaten today. I'm sitting here, it's 12:30. I have not eaten today. I'm not hungry. I'm really not. I eat when I'm hungry, and I eat till I'm full. And that's a real simple way to kind of look at it. But I think that what it does is it teaches you discipline. They've actually done a number of health studies on this, lowers blood sugar and does all other kinds of good stuff. And you can actually see why in the Bible, fasting was often a part of sort of a spiritual renewal that people would do. Because when you're fasting, your body sort of resets itself, so it gets rid of all the crap that you built up in your body.
Right.
Yeah, no, so it's so for me, that's something real simple that I've incorporated that works out well for me.
Yeah.
Maybe you can look into it too. And don't start with 18 hours. Start with like 15 and then just work your way up from there.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk a little more about maybe some fasting as a possibility and some different ways to do that. I want to set the table with a Bible verse for us to take a look at. There's a passage in which we hear this call about caring for our bodies from 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 19 through 20. And we hear Paul say, "Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God with your body." Now, within the context of this passage, a lot of what Paul is addressing is sexual immorality, which was a problem at the church at Corinth. And so he's really addressing some abuses of using our bodies in ways that God did not intend. But I don't think it has to be just in a negative connotation as we take a look at this passage. As you hear this, what does it look like for you, especially in this idea of empowering our bodies, caring for ourselves physically? What's it look like for you to glorify God with your body?
I think it's about just being capable and able to do the things that you were meant to do. And if you are not taking care of your body, you can't do those things.
Yeah. Like I knew a pastor, my first call, I think he was in his 40s at the time. I won't say his name right now in case he happens to watch one day. But he never exercised. Never drank water. The only liquids he drank was coffee and wine.
Oh my gosh.
And he would huff and puff going up the stairs.
Yeah.
And it was impacting not only his quality of life, but his ability to serve, because he just was not in a good, he looked like he was in his 60s and he was in his late 40s.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think some of this is, like a lot of things and like a lot of commands from God, which is what this is, there's a you shall do and you shall not do here. And I think that we can look at this in our own lives. There are obviously things that are good to do, like get regular sleep. We'll talk about that. Eat a good diet, whatever that happens to look like. I think there's some freedom there. Exercise, but there's also things that we really want to avoid. I mean, I think that I think you could make a pretty good case that there is a biblical basis for not smoking cigarettes. You probably shouldn't do that. All the science kind of says this is something that's bad for you, that if you do it long enough, it'll kill you.
Yeah.
So probably don't do that. And there's probably other things that you could fit in there too, things that you should probably avoid. Now, of course, we don't want to take this to an extreme and say, well, you can never indulge in anything. We're not Puritans. We're not saying that you can
don't drink, don't smoke,
don't drink, don't smoke,
everything
don't
in moderation.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think that we do have some freedom here, and some of that can depend on the person. But at the end of the day, we have to use a lot of discernment and pray for wisdom here when we're making these kinds of choices.
Right. Well, and recognizing, listen, this isn't just our bodies, the gift that God's given, but if we are believers in Christ, this is also the temple of the Holy Spirit. And yes, we have bodies that unfortunately are in decay. One day we will die. And so it's easy for some people maybe to get fatalistic. Well, what's it matter? I'm just going to die. And, hey, I'll get a new body in eternity. Yes, you will. But God calls us to take care of our bodies today, because it's part of how we glorify, as well as prepare ourselves so we can be better equipped to love and serve others. Actually, there's a great quote from Luther I found. I always got to bring a Luther quote to one of our podcasts.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
So this is from Concerning Christian Liberty that Luther wrote this, and he says this: it is the part of the Christian to take care of his own body for the very purpose that, by its soundness and well-being, he may be able to labor and to acquire and preserve prosperity, for the aid of those who are in want, that thus the stronger member may serve the weaker member, and that we may be children of God, thoughtful and busy for one another, bearing one another's burdens, and so fulfilling the law of Christ. That part of caring for our body, one is so we feel better, two, to bring glory to God, but the most important, at least from Luther's perspective, is so that we can be at our best in love and service to our neighbors, calling, vocation, which the Called to Be podcast is all about.
Yeah, it's so practical. The people that are closest to me are wife and kids. And when I don't get proper sleep, I'm a bear.
I was just going to mention
sleep.
sleep.
I'm horrible, and I know I'm being horrible, but I can't help myself because of the effect that's. But if I get good sleep, I'm more energetic to keep up with my kids. I'm more understanding.
Not as grouchy.
Loving, not as grouchy.
Well,
yeah,
you can
I'm not
manage
quite the
life
bear.
better because when you're tired, everything is so much bigger than it normally is.
Yeah.
And so you can get overwhelmed.
Yeah,
and
your emotions are right there on the
at
edge.
the edge.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's important, and it's the same thing. And if you're eating a good diet, that's going to put you. You're going to have more energy. You're going to be able to. You're just going to be better equipped to love and serve your neighbor.
Yeah.
It's common sense stuff, I think.
Yeah. Now, Luther, they didn't have fitness centers at the time or diet coaches and all the understanding of diet and stuff that we have now. But even back in the Luther's day, 16th century, there was still this idea of an understanding. Listen, we got to take care of this temple that God's given because there is an impact that it has on our daily life for our own care and for the care of others. And so he puts this as a priority. Now, what we want to do is take this admonition both from Scripture and from what Luther said and give some of the kind of more modern ideas from fitness, diet, science, that how we can better take care of our bodies. I think some good best practices that are out there as we consider taking care of ourselves. So let me offer a couple. I'd like to get some reactions from you all and then see if we have some additions we can add to these. So for exercise, recommended is that you should be doing about 35 minutes of exercise at a rate in which you're getting your heart up to about 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. That means you're not killing yourself, but you are getting your heart pumping. And this can be, i.e., for example, running or walking or cycling, whatever it is. But they kind of say you need about 35 minutes seems to be kind of the sweet spot for this. And there are some real benefits to this. Is it not only reduces stress hormones like cortisol, which is really kind of when we are dealing with stress and anxiety in life, that the cortisol shoots up. It has some real negative health deficits that we're going to talk about in another podcast, as well as adrenaline. And it increases kind of some of the happy neurotransmitters, the hormones within us, serotonin and dopamine.
Yep. Yeah, it's so true. And if you're not a runner, by the way, here's some more really practical advice. I found this out very recently. If you're worried about the effect of the stress in your joints or you just don't want to go outside and run, you just don't want to do that, do this. Get yourself a treadmill, put it on the incline function, and you can go to the Goodwill and get a treadmill for $50.
There's a lot of New Year's resolutions where people have bought them and then got rid of them.
Go get a treadmill, put it on the incline function so that you're going uphill. Turn it up to like the fat burning section right about in there and try to walk for 35 minutes. You will be sweating bullets by the time it's over. It is a great workout, and you can do it in your living room. You can do it while you're watching TV. You can put on your headphones and watch it.
And even if you don't have the treadmill, I do know of a certain family that may have had a competition. I see Travis has 10,000 steps on the slide as well.
Yep.
And we may have had a Fitbit challenge going on where people were walking circles in our house, trying to make sure that they had the most steps out of everyone in the family. And so you can always just walk the house, walk the yard.
Walk the dog.
Walk the dog, which is coming in my future. But certainly you can do things indoors as well. It's a much smaller space. You kind of look a little bit crazy walking in circles in your house, but it works. And you still get that benefit of moving around and being active. And one thing that helps me with that is either to plug in my headset and listen to an Audible book or listen to music.
That's a great idea.
And then I may or may not have occasionally been addicted to a particular show on Netflix and watched that as I walk the neighborhood.
Yep.
That's good. It's a little harder to do that if you're running, but if you're walking, that works.
Yeah, the walking works.
Yeah, by the way, you mentioned Fitbit. So I used to have one of those. Now I've got my Apple Watch. I love my Apple Watch because, it tells you how many steps in a day, how many calories burned.
Oh, that's awesome.
When I go running, it actually tells me at each mile,
holy cow.
Hey, this is what your pace is, which is awesome.
I'm not in favor of the wrist ones because I think it's measuring how many times I move my arm. It's not measuring my feet.
When I preach, I get a lot of steps
Yes.
when I'm just standing there moving my arm.
I like to keep it in my pocket or on my shoe. I just feel it's more accurate. I don't know.
Yeah. So the Gold Surgeon General report back in 2008, 10,000 steps is kind of the aim each day. A couple more things thinking about exercise. It is true. A body in motion stays in motion. I know for me, when I'm not working out, it's hard to get going. But now that I'm going, and I've been doing it for about 2 months now, I want to work out.
High.
Oh yeah, and
it's a real thing.
And the motivation, I want to do it, and I feel like
do it every day.
Almost every day, 6 days a week. I'm doing it.
And what time do you do it? What's your
peak energy time is about 3:00.
Okay.
So I'm out. I've known my biorhythms. That's an important thing. You really got to check your biorhythms. So if you're a morning workout person, do that. For me, it's about 3:00. I schedule that as my workout time, my self-care time, and I'm out running out on the trails.
So yes, night owls will prefer 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night.
See, I couldn't do that. I'm a morning workout guy because once I get those dopamine levels going and the adrenaline, I'm just like,
And the thought of getting up extra early to exercise, that's just not happening.
I can't do that. Back at Boise State University, I used to sleep in my running outfits because I was supposed to be out there with the rest of the team. They would inevitably have to come by my dorm, smack me with the pillow. Come on, Goozy. I had to throw on my shoes and we'd be out running at 6 every morning.
So here's one bonus for you. There's no extra charge for this, but it goes in with exercise. I found this out recently. They've done a lot of studies on the benefits of like cold showers. Like freezing.
Oh my gosh, my son talks about that all the time.
It's awful when you first, it's like running. It's terrible when you first start doing it, but I guarantee you, like go out for a run to the point where you're like breaking a hard sweat, then turn your shower on freezing cold and get in there for like 10 minutes. You'll feel so good afterwards that just, you'll have like, it gets your heart rate up again. It gets those, it's great stuff.
Kevin, you're wonderful. A little masochistic.
No.
I'm changing my opinions here.
You have to be. I'm serious. You have to be. It's horrible, but it's wonderful.
And this goes to our next point. Do what you like to do. If you like to jump in the cold shower or the snow.
Hey, more power to you.
Yeah, exactly. But, at the end of the day, listen, if you hate running, don't run.
Walk.
Walk, bike, find something you enjoy. Play tennis, play basketball. It's always better when you're doing.
I have to get in one more here. So in Williamsburg.
Oh, goodness.
In Williamsburg, I didn't even know this existed until the other day. There's a place you can go and you can throw axes.
Oh yes.
You can
it's
go
so
and
much
throw
fun.
It looks like a blast. You can go throw axes at the wall.
I've only done it once, and let me tell you, you really have to find your rhythm, and you've got to find a technique because that stupid axe bounces off the wall, and you get so mad.
Yeah, there was a guy in there that was like, he looked like a normal guy, but he was like, he had killer technique, and I was like,
we'll have to share this story for my son's birthday. We did this in Nashville, and I came from behind and utterly stunned everybody. Were suddenly bullseye. I hit my rhythm, and that's another story. And let's move
Moving on.
Throw axes.
We're a little distracted today.
Motivation is found in groups. Having somebody you go out and work out with, whether a walking buddy, cycling groups, I see those around. My wife and I, we go walking in the Colonial Williamsburg, and it's always nice to have somebody, a dog, a friend who goes with you. Having somebody, and then accountability is key. That's one of the key things that you got to have somebody you're accountable to. Sometimes I'm accountable to my watch. My watch is like, hey, you've been doing good. Keep it up. And it's like, okay, at least it's,
I was going to mention my Fitbit app is my accountability partner many days.
Yeah. Let's talk on sleep. And sleep, now I'm going to say this is one that I'm struggling with a little bit. So they say you should get about 7 to 9 hours a night. Usually the sweet spot is about 8 hours. There's some things on getting good sleep. One is be consistent. If you can be consistent on a regular time you go to sleep and create routines about it. Another one, this one, probably I need to work on this one. Don't pig out before bed. I tend to like a snack before bed, and I'm really trying to figure out how to maybe cut that down and then ritualize it. You want to create rituals for going to bed. So maybe having a routine that you kind of start winding down for the night. A couple more, and then we'll get some thoughts from you. Look for cool, dark, and quiet. For me, I'm such a temperature guy. I mean, it's got to be just right, or I mean, if my feet are hot.
If it's hot, forget it.
I cannot sleep. Sorry, Trish. Working out is good. It does create sleep, but doing it right before bed may not be the best.
Us night owls are not going to bed until midnight.
Oh, yeah. You still got like 5 hours, right? Okay. You may be fine. But if you're looking to go like work out and then go right to bed and then wonder why you're not sleeping well, that's part of the problem. Cut out screens and smartphones before bed. This is another one I think I need to start really considering.
It's hard.
I've been having insomnia. I had insomnia last night. And I think that I've worked on my diet. I've worked on my exercise. I think this is my next thing I need to pay attention to. And then if you have sleep apnea, seek some help. Now, I did try a CPAP machine, and I couldn't sleep for an entire week, and I handed it back to him. So I'm on the search because I know I may have some issues. My son has told me he wants to strangle me when we sleep in a hotel room together. So I know I've got some issues. So I'm seeking some other things, but I know that mask over my face does not work.
Yeah, that would be problematic. But there's a couple different things you can do here that are helpful. I mean, people talk about melatonin, and the liquid melatonin, I really like it. It's actually very much a less is more thing. If you take too much of it, it'll actually have the inverse effect. But for me, right about 1 to 2 ml is good.
Okay.
Valerian root's really good. But also what you said about the temperature, they've studied that, and a cold room is actually best for sleep. And then if you get one of those weighted blanket things, I got one of those for Christmas, and the thing weighs like 20 pounds. It's actually heavy when you pick it up, but when it's on top of you, I really do sleep better with it on me. It's weird.
That's awesome.
And they've studied those kinds of things too. So there's lots of little kind of tweaks that you can make to help out with this.
And the big thing, too, is to know, like we mentioned earlier, your biorhythms. Some of us do better with a little bit less sleep. We definitely need more, but we function very well with that 6.5 hours sleep. But 7 and 8 is really great. But it's really about patterns. And knowing your body's patterns, understanding, are you a morning or night person? And how much sleep do you really need? Because some people need more sleep, and some people can
My wife is like a
less.
9 to 10 hour person.
Right.
She just sleeps through the night. I mean, I flop like a fish. I get up in the middle of the night. I mean, seriously, I wake up like 1 o'clock, and it's all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm awake, I guess. And So I have to go read for a little while. It's just, it's frustrating.
Well, and the other thing you have on here is the habits. It's creating that pattern and knowing how to wind down, giving your body the signals it's time to go to sleep, whether it's darkening the room, putting your phone away.
For me, it's disengaging my brain.
Well, I have that problem too. The mouse likes to run in the wheel for hours.
Yeah, that's hard. Let's give a few thoughts here on eating. Eating more healthy meals, knowing what's healthy and what's not, as well as maybe just reduce the portion size a little more portion control. Avoid mindless eating, just sitting there on the couch and just, stuffing your face with chips or, whatever the snack is. Try to have it at preset times. Avoid eating lunch at your desk or multitasking while eating. I sometimes am a little guilty of this myself. Learn more about healthy snacks and drinks. Coffee's great. Soda, not so much.
Coffee is good for you.
Yes.
Coffee's actually good for you.
Yeah, until you start getting heart palpitations, and then maybe you might need to back off a little bit.
And that's a very subjective thing. Some people can talk. I can drink a lot of coffee.
Yes, and I haven't had caffeine in 20 years, so caffeine's a problem.
Okay, Stay away from it.
And then what you talked about, Kevin, the intermittent fasting. And one of the things I've heard is maybe, a day or two a week. Also looking at like maybe an 8-hour window, having your meals within an 8-hour window and not eating anything else beyond that.
And the trick there, the science behind it is that every time you eat, it elevates blood sugar. And so the goal, and then when your blood sugar is elevated, it stores fat. So what intermittent fasting does is you have these periods where your blood sugar is very, very low because you're not eating anything. And it's during those periods that your body is burning fat.
Yeah.
When you combine that with a ketogenic diet, which is there's an emphasis on healthy fat there, that really has been the sweet spot for me, those two things side by side. And it's just, it's wonderful.
And I'll just add, Kevin's disclaimer from a few minutes ago, check with your doctor first before
please.
intermittent fasting, because you may have health conditions that
if you have
are
diabetes, don't do it.
Yeah, you always want to do this in conjunction with a doctor or a health professional. But there
diet
always
can be sensitive.
Yes, yeah. But I think that maybe a small thing you could do is even just cut out some snacks before bed.
Absolutely.
Could be very, very helpful. By the way, Luther, it was interesting. I did some reading on Luther. It's interesting. And this is a man who basically his diet was bratwurst, cheese, beer, and wine, and bread. I mean, the 16th century, there wasn't a lot of dietitians out there. But he talked about, listen, there's really not a prescribed one way is best. And so he says, I'm going to avoid doing that. It kind of depends on the person. So there are some general things, but it's also knowing who you are when it comes to your exercise, when it comes to your sleep, when it comes to your diet. Finding out what works best for you is the best way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people have, for instance, a higher intolerance to things like grain. My son has celiac disease. So for him, what a good diet means is don't eat gluten, like at all. He can't have any of it. Some people are sensitive to that kind of thing. And so that's where actually intermittent fasting can be really helpful, because then as you start to incorporate things back in, you learn what your body is specifically sensitive to. Yeah. And then you just don't eat those things.
Yeah. I want to talk about establishing goals, because, as you take a look at your physical activity, your diet, your sleep patterns, establishing some good goals can be really helpful. Now, when you establish goals, it's much better to establish short-term goals as opposed to long-term goals. And the reason for that is if you say, hey, I want to lose 30 pounds this year. Okay, that's way too long, way too big. So how do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time. Mm-hmm. So maybe your goal is, hey, this week I want to lose two pounds, or maybe I want to go out and walk 3 times a week. Whatever that goal is. And then when you achieve it, it actually, your brain releases these kind of reward neurotransmitters where you get this little shot of, hey, I did it. Or your watch tells you, hey, good job. When you close out your rings, it hits that reward center and keeps you motivated. So look at maybe daily goals, weekly goals, and monthly goals.
And part of that, too, is the psychology of changing your habits. I don't remember the exact number, but I read an article that talked about it takes up to 6 weeks or more to make that new habit part of who you are. Yep. So don't feel like you have to hit every single thing all at one time. Start with one small change. Make that last for that 6 weeks. Then add another change. Because if you do too much at once, you're going to quit.
Yep.
Right. And don't wait for the motivation to do it. That kind of coincides with what Trish said. If you wait for the motivation, you're going to be waiting forever.
Yes.
Like, just do it. The motivation will come once you start to see the benefit from it. But just do it.
One thing at a time.
Yeah. Do it.
Remember rocks and sand?
Love that.
So the idea is, if you have sand and rocks and you want to fill a vase, if you put the sand in first, likely you're not going to get the rocks in. But if you put the rocks in, the sand will fill around that. And so the idea in scheduling is, listen, if this is important for you, caring for your body, put that in and schedule it. Protect it. Make it a priority in your life, because the urgency represented by sand will make it where you cannot find time to do that. It'll make it where it's impossible. But if you protect it, the urgency will fill in around that. One thing I advocate is establishing a happy hour. So a happy hour is, hey, I'm going out running or biking, but during this time, I also spend it doing some prayer time.
I thought you were going to say I'm going to go out running, but I'm also going to have a beer while I'm running.
I thought we were going there too.
Happy hour.
Yeah, or maybe there is a beer at the end of that, or a reward or something. But going out with friends and exercising, so then you're also engaging your mind and your heart. So establishing these where you're hitting kind of some of the well-being goals kind of overall in life. Strive for rhythm, not balance. So understand the rhythms of your body, rhythms of life. Here's one. Start where you are, not where you want to be. And that's, I think, really important is don't go and try to throw up 300 pounds bench press.
You will die.
You will die, yeah. especially if you don't have somebody spotting you.
Yes.
But start where you are and then take the 1, 2 down, take baby steps. So that whole movie, What About Bob? With Bill Murray.
Love it.
Taking baby steps out the door,
Yep.
taking baby steps down the street. Small little steps, small improvements, small goals. Choose what is easy to do and likely to make a difference. I think is a big thing. A couple last ones. Remember, something is better than nothing. This has been a mantra for me. I may not have enough time to get my full workout in the way I like with running and weights. Maybe I don't even have time to do a full, maybe hour and a half bike ride. Well, maybe just 40-minute bike ride. Something is better than nothing. And then finally, accountability and encouragement are key in this. Anything else you'd add or reactions to some of these on establishing goals?
I think just the something is better than nothing is a really important thing to carry. If nothing else from this entire conversation is just do one thing. And if you can do that one thing, you can build on it.
Yeah, absolutely. You may not be able to run 5 miles a day like Travis, but you can do 5 sets of steps if you have them in your house. You can do 10 push-ups when you get out of bed. Just start somewhere.
You can drink more water. You can make a modification to your diet. There's just one thing that you can do.
You can take cold showers.
You could take cold showers.
You could.
You
might not like it, but you could.
By the way, that drinking water, they found that actually you are much more youthful and you live longer when you drink and you're hydrated. So it's really...
Hydration's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, so let's do this. It might be kind of fun to do some accountability with each other. What's maybe a small change that each of us could make this week that if we did it, we would see a big impact when it comes to caring and empowering our bodies?
I need a specific one. Okay. So I am going to strive. I'm not going to start with 35 minutes. I'm not going to start there. I'm going to start with 15.
That's a good goal.
15 minutes a day of some kind of intentional movement is what I'm going to call them. So it's not too restrictive. Does that work?
Yeah, that works great.
Okay.
Yeah. How realistic do you think that is for you?
I think it's pretty realistic. Okay. I can carve out 15 minutes.
Awesome.
I can do that.
Awesome.
And my dogs will love me because we are going to start walking again.
Oh, awesome.
Because they need that and I need it too. It's that mental downtime. And like you mentioned, it's that you have that happy hour. It's that moment to do something for you. And that becomes my time.
Yeah. I think for me, I need to focus on the sleep. And so what I'm going to do is they've been healthy snacks, but I usually eat almonds, have an orange. But I think I'm even going to cut out snacks after dinner and try to have my snacks more in an 8-hour period of time. So I'm going to see what kind of impact that has.
Yeah. One more thing to add on to that too, and this might be helpful for our listeners too, but if you're having insomnia, check the medications that you're taking regularly because, I found this out just a couple of months ago. I had a bout of insomnia like you wouldn't believe. And what it ended up being was there was a cold medicine that I was taking that had an active ingredient that's been known to cause insomnia. And as soon as I cut it out, I was fine.
Okay.
So just watch that.
That's
kind
good
of
to
stuff.
know.
Some people are sensitive to like Benadryl. Some people, it makes them real sleepy. Some people, it wakes them up. So check your medications and make sure that all of that is even keel and you're not putting something in your body that's keeping you awake at night.
That's good too. Yeah. Thank you for that recommendation.
Yep.
Hey, so what should be a takeaway for our listening and viewing audience from this podcast today?
I really want to say take cold showers, but I'm not gonna. I'll hand it over
and
to
you
Trish.
can write to Kevin at
Kevin.Scott@coldshowers.com. All the benefits of cold showers.
Hey, and if it works for you, let us know your story.
Yeah. No. I'm gonna Trish.
I don't know. This cold shower thing is kind of hard. I think really it's like we've said a couple times. It's really just finding that one thing, starting a pattern, finding a way that you can follow your own natural rhythms, your own natural interests.
What makes sense for you?
And something you can stick to. Something that's comfortable for you. Don't try to go out like gangbusters because it's not going to be successful or long-term.
Yeah, because you're probably going to overdo it. You're going to hurt. You're not going to feel like wanting to do it for
injury.
a week or injury. Yeah. And then you'll be back at square one on the couch doing nothing.
Yeah, that's a pretty good takeaway. Just do what you like. If you don't want to take cold showers, don't take cold showers. I'm weird. I like cold showers. But find those healthy, I can't get over it. Those healthy rhythms that feel good for you and then do that.
Yeah. And remember, at the end of the day, yes, this is about us feeling good, but it's also really part of how we glorify God, the gift of our bodies that we've been given, and for the purpose of making sure we're showing up at our best in our callings of life in love and service in all our areas of responsibility, so that we can love people the way God intends us to.
And it's the one thing we can take care of. We don't need to rely on anyone else.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
Well, hey, thank you everybody for joining us for this Called2B podcast. To our listening and viewing audience, we hope that this was a blessing to you. We would like to encourage you not only to like this podcast, but also to share it with others. If you've been blessed by it, there may be somebody who is trying to work on their physical condition, their right eating, right sleeping, right exercising, that this might be a way to help inspire them towards getting in a better physical condition so that they can be at their best in their callings of life. We want to also encourage you, maybe you need some help. Remember, having accountability, having encouragement, you can't do this alone. Oftentimes for any goal that we set in life, that we need others. And so I'd like to encourage you to reach out to me at the Called2B Podcast at gmail.com. If you're looking maybe to talk to somebody or you need a coach, I'd love to talk to you and help get you moving on these goals of physical well-being. Also, too, maybe something that really, since our best practice conference, we wanted to start maybe doing with our podcast is if there is a topic or if there is a question that you have, also feel free to email us and maybe we'll address that in one of our upcoming podcasts. As always, we want to thank the Southeastern District of Malin for their generous gifts that have made this podcast possible. And with that, we want to wish you all God's richest blessings, and we'll catch you for the next Called2B podcast. Take care, everybody.